All right then, welcome back. This is Business Center, and today we are talking about the donkey farming in the country, and we have Samantha Opere, who is a vet at Kendat, and she's here to just explain to us more about this and what farmers need to do in order to make sure that we take care of the donkey. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good?
Yes.
All right. Let's get right into it. Now, what is Kendat all about?
Okay, so Kendat in full is Kenya Network for Dissemination of Agricultural Technologies. It's a mouthful. But basically what we do is build capacity of farmers to reach their potential in terms of if they're producing crops, if they are taking care of their animals. Primarily our main project at the moment is on donkey welfare. So that's what our main focus is currently, but we have other projects on climate smart technologies, just helping people adapt to the climatic changes that are happening.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. And what made you decide now to focus on the donkey?
Okay, so we like to describe donkeys as forgotten livestock. And then there's the joke that goes around, is it under Ministry of Agriculture, is it labor, transport? So, so basically, when you have vaccination campaigns for livestock, the donkey never used to be included.
Yeah.
When people were working with the donkeys, there was a lot of mistreatment of the donkeys. So Kendat started the project, the Heshimu Punda program, in Mwea in 2001. Mainly because donkeys were being used to transport rice in the area, and their welfare was pretty bad. So the donkeys had wounds, they were being whipped severely, they were being overloaded, they were being overworked. So we stepped in to train the farmers on how to take care of the donkeys so that it's better able to serve you as the person using it.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. You've spoken about rice in Mwea. We'll get to that.
Okay.
But first, just tell us what has the role the donkey has played in rice farming in Kenya. What is the pivotal role that the donkey has played to make sure that this product is successful in the country?
Yeah, so to go back a bit, first before we figure out where they fit in is to figure out how rice comes.
Yeah.
So there's the planting of the rice. So there are seedlings that are transplanted into the bigger farm. Then the rice grows, and then the rice is taken to the storehouses and the mills. So the donkey comes in at different phases of that chain. So basically at the beginning, the donkeys can either transport the seedlings to the farm. They also transport the fertilizer to the main shamba. And then once the rice is grown, then the donkeys now collect all the rice, the straws and everything, and take them to the mill. And then from the mill, they can also take the rice to the store facilities or any other place that they need to go. So the donkey feeds into different points of that value chain. Yeah. Almost
every since the planting to the up to the
end.
Yeah, up to the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How if you look at now rice farming, let's say the donkey, the way we've been having issues of slaughtering of donkeys, how will this affect rice farming if now the number of donkeys is reduced? What can you tell us about this?
Okay, so well, we all know road networks in Kenya are still not the best. We're not where we need to be, especially rural roads. So donkeys are supplementing that transport aspect. So when you take out the donkey, it means that even if you're using a pickup or the three-wheeled tuk-tuks to carry the pickup tuk-tuk kind of thing. So when you're using those, there are still some roads where those vehicles can't get to. And then you have people maybe having to carry the rice on their backs to get to where the road is good. So if you take out the donkey, it won't necessarily affect the price of the rice, but it will affect the profit margin of the rice farmer. Because now they have to use a means of transport that is slightly more expensive than the donkey. Because the donkey, basically, the main inputs is you're just feeding it and vet care. But for a vehicle, you need to do the wear and tear, the fuel and all those things. And if it's going on a road that it can't pass, there's a lot of damage to the vehicle. So in terms of profit margin, that's where the farmers get really affected. Yeah.
And you spoke about the donkey in Mwea. So can we just delve into this and see Can any other animal fit in doing this? Whatever the donkey does in where the way we've spoken about the planting of the rice, the harvesting and taking it to the mills.
Yep. So we could do oxen, but from what I've observed, even in Mwea, they have the option of oxen, but they don't really use them. The other thing is donkeys are very teachable animals. They're like dogs. They're easy to train, and once they get used to a routine, then they'll just be working continuously. Because I know I've spoken to some donkey owners who say that if you put the jerry cans of water on your donkey in the morning from the house, you just need to make sure there's someone at the river to fill the jerry cans, and the donkey will walk back. And
it will go by itself. Wow.
So if it knows that it goes 3 trips in a day in the morning, once it's done the 3rd trip, it won't go because it knows the routine. So they're very trainable, and it's easy to work with donkeys so long as you just understand their language, because they're actually very gentle animals. I don't know why they said Asante Apunda ni Mateke, but when you interact with the donkey and understand its language, they're very gentle, and they are loving. Because I've had some donkey owners say when their donkey sees them in the distance, it starts braying because it's excited to see their owner coming home. So they're very teachable compared to the oxen. And they're also easier to work with, because when the roads are impassable and it rains a lot, you need to push the donkey and the cart to go to maneuver the road. So it's easy to maneuver with a donkey than compared to the ox.
And going back to what you said about the Heshimu Punda project that you had come up with in 2001, is it still going on, or it's something that maybe along the way it's faded off?
It's still going on, but our trainings are usually like in phases. So the first training that we're most likely to do is just training you on animal welfare, so that you know what the welfare needs of your animals would be. So the feeding, not whipping, not overloading, those things, because there were a lot of wounds at the beginning. So we'd train them on how to manage wounds, and if the wound is too big for you to manage, then you call a vet. So they've moved from, like the donkey owners in Mwea have moved from that stage, and they have groups now. They have a CBO where they're able to do like things like table banking, just to increase their income on other aspects and saving. There's another thing we discovered in Mwea, which is also a bit common in urban areas where people are using donkeys, is that sometimes the youth are abusing drugs. So you find, because they are high when they are working with the donkey, they tend to whip the donkey unnecessarily, causing a lot of pain. So it causes welfare issues to the donkey. So we started working with NACADA. Okay, before that, we tried to use force. Of if you're seen whipping your donkey, then we are putting you in jail. We worked with the police and of Mwea, and people were arrested, but it had a negative impact. It wasn't what we wanted. So we started working with NACADA just to train them on drug abuse. Some of these people, they have they have social issues. There are social issues that are causing them to use the drugs. So when we worked with NACADA, they've been able to work through those social issues. We even have a football tournament, so that you're expending your energy on football and not taking your spare time to do drugs and things like those.
Exactly.
So with that, we've seen a reduction in the amount of whipping in the area. So yeah, so we are seeing how we go with the phases.
On the part of donkey welfare, what would you advise is the right thing a farmer can do in order to make sure that, what is the right condition in which a donkey can be in order to be put to work to carry loads? Yeah, because someone whips the donkey from Monday to Monday, and the donkey is expected to carry loads all the time. So is there a condition that you can say, now this animal is ready to be put to work? Okay, so by OIE standards, OIE is like the WHO of animals. Yes.
So they advise that a donkey should start working at 3 years of age. So basically when it's about 2.5, it can start being trained to know how to carry loads and pull the cart, but it starts at 3 years of age. From there, it depends on, now you look at the animal itself. So because animals are different, like just the way people are different, the weight you can carry is not the same weight I can carry. So if you're loading your donkey, you look at perhaps how is it behaving? Is it walking calmly or not? So that you know it's not overloaded. Is it like breathing heavily? At some point the donkey will tell you that I'm tired, please, let's take a break. So when the donkey starts taking like a slower pace, you know it's getting tired. If it starts like kicking its legs up, it's really telling you, know, anyway, I'm very, very tired, so we need to take a break. So we advise them to just observe the animal. When you stop somewhere, please give it water because it could be very thirsty. And this is common also in drought-prone areas, the semi-arid areas. So you have donkeys are walking 7 kilometers to get water, but the owner might forget to give it water at the watering point. So if it's those water kiosks or the river, it might not get water. And then we'll carry the water all the way back home. But then again, because there's drought, we're not even sure if this donkey will ever drink water. Yeah. So it's just to be keen on the donkey needs water. Has it drank water today? It's the weather is kind of dry. There's not a lot of grass. Have we gotten it some hay to give it some energy to go and work with? There's also the aspect of vet care. So ideally, like all animals, the donkey should be vaccinated every year. So vaccinations such as tetanus is a good one. Rabies, depending on the area, if rabies is endemic in the area. Also, there's deworming every 3 months. That should be done so that they don't have the worms that will now cause them other issues. Yeah, so ideally those are. Oh, and then there's sorry. It's okay. there are some areas where the ground tends to be wet a lot. Like this is like Nyandarua and Bomet, where it rains a lot. So it means the donkey's hooves are always in mushy water or soil. So it's always good to have their hooves trimmed. So it's like a manicure kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, so they have their hooves trimmed so that they're easier for them to walk with.
Yeah.
Also, donkeys that are walking in tarmacked areas, so urban areas. Yeah. So always checking that there are no stones or thorns in the hooves, and then getting a farrier to do the trimming.
And okay, you as a vet, what are some of the common challenges that you've encountered when it comes to the donkey being brought to you, and maybe you're called and told the donkey is not fine? Like, what are some of the common challenges that you've come across?
So the first ones are wounds, because when wounds are not properly managed, there's a possibility the donkey might get tetanus. This is because when the wound heals, there are some spores that are released by the bacteria, and when the wound heals, then that's when they start being active. So you'll find a donkey has tetanus, but if you look at the history, there was a wound that wasn't washed. So basically, cleaning wounds is very important, so that they don't get possibility of tetanus. Other things we've had is donkeys getting rabies. So this is because maybe there was a dog that had rabies, came and bit the donkey. And so they're predisposing their owner also to rabies. And rabies, again, it has no cure. So once a human gets rabies, that's about it. So if we are able to vaccinate the dogs beforehand, then the other animals will be protected. We've had other diseases like pneumonias, depending on where the donkeys are. There are blood parasites that will cause the donkeys to have fevers and just go down, so they're not able to work, and sometimes they die. Yeah, and then there are cases of colic, which is basically they ate something that they were not supposed to, so they have stomach issues. So basically, if you're feeding your donkeys, ideally should have 70% of grass, and then maybe 30% of the concentrates and these other things. So if you give them too much of the concentrate, then they'll have stomach issues, so they'll have colic. So also just looking at the feeding to make sure it's balanced. Yeah, and also giving them water, because again, if they don't have water, then their food gets impacted in the stomach. So they're not able to work again. Yeah. And
now jumping to an issue that has really been a problem in many of the circles of people who keep donkeys. Slaughter has taken a toll in the donkey population. Is donkey hide trade really sustainable to keep people keeping on slaughtering the donkeys?
Well, it's not. As of now, it's not. Also from other places, it doesn't look like. So when we did the census in 2009, we had about 1.8 million donkeys. In 2016, the first slaughterhouse was opened. Then within that period, we got another 3, so we had 4 slaughterhouses working in Kenya. So between 2016 and the next census of 2019, the donkey population went down to 1.8 million. Wow. So there are many things that will contribute to this, but the bulk of it was that donkeys were being slaughtered either in the bush or in the slaughterhouses. So technically it's not sustainable. Also, we believe that the planning for this was not done properly, because if you are planning on slaughtering X number of donkeys, you need to know where you're getting your donkeys from. Donkeys are slow. Their breeding is a bit slow. It's not like cows where you're sure every year you'll have a cow.
Yeah.
So they foal every, they can have a foal in, the pregnancy is 11 to 14 months. So it means it's a year and something. And then even it's not a guarantee that you'll have that foal, because remember the donkeys are working, so most of their energy goes towards work. So you need to be very diligent and particular to get your donkeys to now have time to even think about reproduction. So then, because of the work the donkeys do, it's not really a sustainable business. Yeah.
And now, still on the same case, donkey skin is one of the major products being traded. And what is Kendat doing in order to expand lobbying and community engagement in order to stop this, to try also and stop this?
So we've been working with our communities, because they're the ones who are really affected if the donkeys are slaughtered. So just supporting them in terms of what to do. Normally, before the slaughter was at its height, donkeys would just be roaming around. So after work, they're just going everywhere. So the first thing was to advise them to build a shelter for your donkey, so that when your donkey is not working, it can just be eating within the shelter, so it's safe. So that's the first thing. The other thing is just for them to raise their voice, say that our donkeys are being slaughtered and this is what we rely on for our daily income. So if they go, that means we'll be very poor. We won't have anything to depend on to get income. So just making sure that all their political leaders and other policymakers know that if this donkey is taken out of Mwea or taken out of Kiambu, that there's a whole chain of people who are going to be affected by its loss. Again, we've helped them. We've also done some meetings with the Director of Veterinary Services, just to highlight to him that this donkey is doing so much for the community, that I think it's time we consider that it needs to be protected, because the number is really going down, and if we don't do anything now, then they'll probably be extinct in a few years.
Yeah, and now in communities where maybe there's low rainfall, and let us just say arid and semi-arid areas, what would you advise farmers there who rear donkeys to make sure that by the time the drought comes, because seasons always come and go, and there are areas in Kenya where drought is the thing. Yeah. So how can you advise these farmers? Maybe when rainfall comes, maybe once in a very long time, what can they do in order to make sure that they sustain these animals even throughout the drought period? Yeah.
So the first one would be, when there's plenty, you store some. So there's like the maize stalks and all those. If you're having, if I know arid areas do a lot of legumes, so those the leaves, you can keep those, store those for future use for your animals. If you have access to hay, it's also good to get some when the price is a bit low and store that for future use. Again, there's water storage, because water storage is another challenge in arid areas. So if the government is able to support, or if you're able to do it at your own home level, then find a way if you can get a tank to be storing water. So that means when there's drought and you have to walk 7 kilometers a day, then the donkey will do maybe the one trip for that day, and then come and you store all the extra water. So that you then have to do so many trips every single day if you're able to store your water properly. Yeah, and then when there's rain again, it goes into the tank, so they're able to store the water, and then the donkey does fewer trips. But it's also good to provide your donkey with water as it's doing those rounds. Yeah.
And also going back to what you were speaking about on lobbying and making sure that the community supports this, do you find resistance sometimes, maybe when you want to go and talk to the community and tell them, okay, this is what we want to do, we want to partner with the government and do this, and then the community is like, no, us, we know what we are doing. Do you find such cases in communities?
Well, I think those cases mainly come up when your approach was not the best, because you can't take you can't take a solution to someone if they haven't seen it as a problem for themselves. So the first is usually engaging these communities to identify what their actual problems are. Because in my mind, because I'm donkey oriented, I'll think the problem is something affecting the donkey, but there's a whole chain that leads to how it gets to the donkey. So I need to find out what their problem is, because I can't come and tell you, you need to feed your donkey twice a day, and you're not even able to feed yourself. Exactly. So how am I sorting out your primary issue? Exactly. And then how do I tie my agenda to sorting your primary issue? So again, when you go to the community, it's also good to work with like chiefs, so at least there's that whole buy-in. There's someone who they can listen to, because you're a foreigner in that community. So there's someone they listen to, and you're able to get their solution sorted. Yep.
Okay. All right. I'm being told to wrap up, but now I don't know. Let me just ask you this as we wrap up. You as Kendat, how do you train farmers to make sure that they are taking care of their donkeys in the right way, and how do you train them in order to make sure that at least this education is reached to even that farmer who is in the rural area? Tell me the process.
Okay, so the process starts with, we identify what the main welfare issue is. So if it's whipping or wounds, then we try to get them to form a group, which is easier to train. It's easier to train a group. And then within that group, they'll also have, among them, there are people who will pick the training faster than others, and they'll be like an example to the rest, so that when we're not around to train, there's always that person who is the referral person, who you can use, like our champion, to tell them, this is how it's supposed to be done. And then we come back and build on the previous training, knowing that they've been working on something. So that's how the trainings flow.
Yeah, and lastly, what is your advice going forward? As we've seen, the numbers are the numbers of donkeys that are being slaughtered keep on increasing. So going forward, what would you advise maybe people to do, or communities to do around them, in order to make sure that they are keeping them safe, the donkeys safe from this slaughter?
First is just the building of the shelter for protection, and then like anything else in Kenya, you just need to be proactive. You need to say that you're being affected, so that eventually someone will listen. And if the more of us are saying that donkeys are going down, there's a bigger voice coming up. So then we'll be able to get more, people will listen more, and see that we're doing, whatever we're trying to say. It might sound funny at the beginning, but it's something that's really serious, and it's affecting so many people. So just being proactive and like shouting out from the rooftops that donkeys need to be taken care of.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. We've had a really nice conversation. Thank you so much. All right. That was Samantha Opere, and she has really spoken about how to take care of the donkey as a farmer, and everything that you need to do in order to make sure that the donkeys around you are kept safe. We're going to go for a short break, and we'll be back with innovations and agri-facts.